I just want to welcome everyone. This is the Ways and Means Committee of the Greenfield City Council. Today is Tuesday, August 16th. It is 6:02 p.m. I'm going to call this meeting to order. This meeting is being recorded by the Ways and Means Committee. If any other persons present are doing the same, you must notify the chairperson at this time. In accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20G, no person shall address a meeting of a public body without permission of the chair, and all persons shall, at the request of the chair, be silent. No person shall disrupt the proceedings of a meeting of a public body if, after clear warning from the chair, a person continues to disrupt the proceedings. The chair may order the person to withdraw from the meeting, and if the person does not withdraw, the chair may authorize a constable or other officer to remove the person from the meeting. Okay, we will do a roll call. Councillor DeSorga.
Present.
Councillor Toronzo.
I am here.
Councillor Healy.
Here.
Okay, and I know Councillor Golub is not with us tonight. And I'm Chris Forgy, and I'm present, so we do have a quorum. Our first order of business will be to approve the minutes of July 19th, 2022. May I have a motion?
So moved.
I move.
Moved by Councillor Toronzo, seconded by Councillor DeSorga. Is there any discussion, change, amendments, corrections? Hearing none.
Even that one for tomorrow.
Oh, you're going to save that for tomorrow? Okay, very good. Thank you. All those in favor? Aye. Raise your hands. Yep. Okay. All opposed? Abstentions? Okay, the minutes are approved. We only have one motion tonight. Let me just bring this up here a little bit. We have a motion to take from the table order number fiscal year 22-155, appropriate 175 from general fund, 8,400 general stabilization for independent assessment and audit of the City of Greenfield's police department structures and policies. May I have, I'm thinking I'm doing this okay. Okay, may I have, here's my question. I'm sorry, I don't know parliamentary procedure here too well. Do I have to take this from the table in order for us to discuss this? Or can we just discuss it? Councillor DeSorga?
I think you take something from the table and then you discuss it. But it actually was tabled at the meeting.
It was tabled at the meeting.
On our agenda. But you know what? We could be on the safe side and take it from the table. There's no harm from that.
You can always put it back, right?
You can put it back.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Okay. I moved to put it back on the table for discussion at chairs.
Okay. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Okay, we are now open for discussion. Does anybody have any comments or thoughts about this? I certainly do. But I would like to hear from everybody else first. So is there anybody who wants to comment?
Councillor Forgy.
Yes.
Yep.
Councillor
Yes.
Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
I actually submitted a different order. And I know you have to take this one from the table, but just so you know, a different order was submitted to be considered. One to reduce that number to 100,000, and then the 40,000, what was it? 45,000 as part of the 75 for the task force.
Hang on here just a minute, Mayor. I'm just going to check something out.
And I submitted that in time for it to, I did it within the 5-day rule. Let me put it that way. Now,
right. I understand. Yeah, I understand that, but I don't see the order in our agenda.
Yeah, I know.
So
nor did I. I thought I saw the one for 45, but not the one for 100.
The one for 45, I don't believe is in our agenda either. Hang on just a second. Let me just check that.
I got that one on the 26th of July. And the other, I'm trying to find where the other one was. I remember seeing it.
I remember seeing those too, but they're not on our agenda.
Yeah.
So that is.
I was just bringing that to your attention. However you handle this going forward, it's not my meeting, and if you need me to answer any questions, I'm happy to do that.
I understand. Thank you. So actually, we've taken it from the table. I'm sorry. Is there someone who wants to speak? I can't.
I was just saying sorry, I was just saying that I didn't see the other one.
Yeah, I don't see the other one either. Mm-hmm. So I've got a dilemma here. Really, it's a technicality that we're taking. We've taken it from the table for discussion. We can do so, but there is no other motion that is going to move us forward on this evening. And there's an expectation that we would have 2 orders to discuss tonight to go forward to council tomorrow evening. Right. So I am going to say that at this point, since we have nothing further that's scheduled on the agenda, and we really can't talk about anything that is not on our agenda, I would request a motion that we put this back on the table. I mean, we
okay, I'll move to put it back on the table.
Table it, I guess.
Table it.
I need a motion to table. Okay. Thank you, Councilor DeSorga. May I have a second?
Second, Healy.
Thank you, Councilor Healy. Sorry about that, folks. I think my own opinion is I think it will be better if we take these in 2 pieces and 2 motions as they come along. I know that delays the money request for a month, but I don't really think we can vote on either one of those 2 pieces tonight. Okay, we are moving forward on a discussion. The discussion, the proposal to establish a community task force, and that was the other money that was going to come forward tonight. So unless anybody's got anything they want to say about the task force at this point, I think we should leave that on the agenda until next month's meeting. Is everybody in agreement with that? I can't see you all, but
I'm okay with that, Councilor Forgy.
Okay. Councilor Toronto?
I'm not, yeah, I don't have a problem with that.
Okay, Councilor Healy?
I'm good as well, thank you.
Okay, very good. All right, we're moving forward on concerns expressed by Greenfield residents concerning what they have titled equity theft. This was looking for a home at Chair's meeting. I took it because it has to do with, it's a money issue regarding the town, but we do have people here to speak with us this evening. I have to apologize to the mayor. I did not get your email in time to ask Kelly Varner, our treasurer, to be present, for her to be present tonight. I want to take this in 2 parts. We'll listen to what the Greenfield residents want us to know this evening. And then for our September meeting, we will have Kelly Varner come forward and talk to us about the practicality of what the residents are presenting for us this evening. If everyone is in agreement with that, Councilor DeSorga?
I'm fine with that. I would love to hear what everyone had to say, and I think that's a great idea about having Kelly too another time.
Okay,
And
Counselor Healy, is that okay with you?
Yes, it is.
Counselor, okay, thank you. And Counselor Toronzo.
Yep, that's cool.
Okay, very good. So I do know that we have Al Norman out here, and I'd like to, let me just see where I'm looking at
Pardon,
here.
Chris, if I could, before we move on.
Sure.
I'm not seeing, I'm seeing I'm seeing the memo that the mayor's regarding about the 100,000, but I'm not seeing the financial order attached to that. I'm only seeing the memo that says per the financial order submitted here, but I don't know if that part didn't get attached. The forwarded correspondence on the 26th has a memo to the council, and in that memo it speaks of a financial order, but the only financial order that also came through on the 26th in a separate email only had to do with the 45. So I don't actually see a financial order for the 100. Just putting it out there. I don't know if that didn't trickle down or if it needs to be resent.
Well, the other thing is, I don't know if it was the intent, and this is where we get a little bogged down in our discussion of the 175 to split it into two pieces, but there is nothing technically for us to vote on because there are not two orders for us to take under consideration. It's not posted on the agenda, and therefore I don't think we can move on it.
Right. I'm
mean,
not looking to move on it. I'm just saying I heard the mayor say it got submitted, but I don't have it. So I don't know if it didn't get forwarded
no, I don't,
to the office or if it wasn't attached in the original email that got forwarded.
yeah, I don't have that. I don't think any other counselor has that as well. So they can take it up tomorrow evening if it's on the agenda. It can be taken up right from the floor tomorrow evening. If that tends to move things along a little quicker, then that would be a discussion for the full council instead of it coming with a recommendation out of Ways and Means. So that's how it has to exist right now, I think. And if we find it on, I'm sorry to say, I don't know if it's on our agenda tomorrow night. I suspect it is, but we don't have it here in our Ways and Means. Okay. I think we're okay. I think we're in the clear. All right. So now I wanted to move on. There were a couple of memos. I'm sure everybody's gotten some email from Greenfield residents talking about the issue of tax title. And the matter of what people are referring to as equity theft. And I've invited, let's see, there's 3 people here this evening that wish to speak to us on this issue. And I would ask that whoever would like to speak first, please go ahead and identify yourself. Please understand that this is not going to be a debate. The Ways and Means Committee is only gathering information on this issue, and we're very happy to hear what you have to say. We would and could ask questions of you if what you have presented to us needs further clarification. So, Al, I would ask you, please, if you would like to identify the other people that are there with you and decide who amongst the 3 of you would start the conversation.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to talk about home equity. With me tonight is Mitch Spate and Joan Marie Jackson. I can't see them on my screen. Can you see them or?
I let them in.
Okay, great.
Okay.
I sent a couple of memos to members of the committee about what we wanted to cover tonight, and we'll do it as expeditiously as we can. But I thought it might be helpful for Mitch and Joan to just begin with the human face of what happened to them in the process of almost losing their home equity, and some of the twists and turns that process took. Mitch and Joan I think Joan wanted to go first. And please feel free to members to interrupt anything that we say at a point that you have a question. If we don't see you, just raise your hand. But I don't want this to be uninterrupted. We're happy to take questions as we go. Joan, are you there?
I did let them, let me see. Hang on. I know that they, let me look at this again.
Their name is there. Their name is there, and there's not a microphone next to them. Like a lot of times, there's a microphone and it's like on,
Yeah.
and you can talk or mute or
I
mute
think
it.
they're
Hello,
we're here.
we're here.
There we are.
Okay, very,
Can you
very
hear
good.
us?
Can you hear us?
Okay.
Yes, thank you. We can. Thank you.
Joan, can
Please
you-
go ahead.
Can you begin, Joan?
Yes. Good evening, everyone. Greetings to all the members of the Ways and Means Committee. Thank you for putting the matter of home equity theft on the agenda for this evening. On December 29th, 2021, Mitchell Spade and I, Jill Marie Jackson, were served by the Sheriff's Department of Greenfield, Massachusetts, with a notice to quit, demanding we have 30 days to vacate the real property known as 2 Chestnut Hill. The notice to quit lacked a date for a court hearing. Then, as of March 2nd, 2021, we received or were served by the Sheriff's Department again, a second notice to quit with no assignment of a court hearing. I bring this to your attention because as of December 26th, 2021, to the best of my knowledge, 98% of all funds due, including taxes, interest, collection fees, and legal fees, were accounted for as legal tender in remedying and curing this tax arrears. The City of Greenfield, Mass, and their legal counsel was cognizant of the forthcoming availability of funds cleared for payment. These warlike aggressions by the City of Greenfield, Massachusetts, by using the process of sending the sheriff to serve us on December 29th, 2021, and then again, as of March 2nd, 2021, were failed attempts of a rude eviction. Due to unnecessary delays by the City of Greenfield, Massachusetts, we incurred unnecessary per diem interest on an outstanding obligation that would have been resolved and deemed acceptable by any other debt obligation relationship. To be dispossessed of one's real property is more than an inconvenience. It is an affront to one's very dignity. These warlike aggressions by the City of Greenfield, Mass are unacceptable, unethical, and will not be tolerated. Thanks to our astute, competent, and professional legal counsel, they were able to thoroughly dismantle any attempts to confiscate full equity of our real property. This deceitful, flagrant, and predatory practice by the City of Greenfield, Mass is known as home equity theft. There are many instances of this occurring within the City of Greenfield, Massachusetts, which is unconstitutional, unethical, and attributes to homelessness. The City of Greenfield, Massachusetts should not be afforded 1 penny more than what is due them in taxes, interest, and collection fees. Any excess from a sale should be rightfully returned to the real property owner, whether the real property is improved or vacant. We are hereby asking the City Council of Greenfield, Massachusetts, as our legislative body to take the necessary actions to abolish and eradicate the practice of home equity theft. The city of Greenfield, Massachusetts can and should set the precedent that in the collection of taxes, it will no longer participate in the taking of excess equity over and above taxes, interests, and collection costs to make the city whole. The City Council of Greenfield, Massachusetts can also lobby for the passage of Bill H.3053 to protect the equity of all real property owners throughout the state of Massachusetts and end home equity theft. Many will say it's the law, but slavery was the law, but it doesn't make it right. Mitch would like to speak to you as well. Mitchell Spade.
Thank you, John. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do you want to have a time?
Good evening, Ways and Means Committee. Thank you for giving us a moment of your time. I would like to start out stating that I think the whole process is very flawed. And we'll get into that later on, different solutions to it. In land court is a cushy relationship that exists with the judge and the lawyers representing the various municipalities. There were some serious improprieties and inaccuracies presented to us. They refused to acknowledge that there was joint ownership. They also presented an inaccurate statement accusing us of having real property encumbered with a mortgage, when in fact, our property was free and clear. It had been free and clear since 2012. These actions are being taken against us in 2020. We attempted to make a partial payment of $20,000 in August of 2021, which was more than half of the amount due. However, it was refused by the Treasurer's Office. Okay. On two separate occasions, as Joan recalled, December 21st and March 22nd, we were served by the Sheriff's Department. When they knew, Greenfield was advised that the funds were there and the taxes would be cured. It's ironic that they could hire a second lawyer to serve us by the Sheriff's Department. However, there was no notice stating you had a right to redemption, which most, I'm pretty sure the city of Greenfield is aware of that. There's a year given for that process to occur. However, I guess their attempt was for us to abandon the property in 30 days and it would be easier for them to take possession. That didn't happen. And I want to make it very clear that we don't see ourselves as victims. We won. Yes. And we do not intend to have anyone else who's a property owner in the city of Greenfield go through this. And there's many ways to address it. But first, I think the city council is in a position that they can take the lead on this, right. Set the precedent for other municipalities to follow. We have enough stains on us right now, and I don't have to call them out for you to be cognizant of them. I think it's time for change, and there's ways to get it done. We don't have to wait for the mayor to say, hey, we're gonna sign off on this. Change can be done from within. And I think as the council, being our representatives, take the lead. Let's see what else we got going on. In my studies, there's a pattern and trend that exists here in home equity theft. This didn't just start last year. You do your research and you will see that this has been going on for quite a while, okay? And the debt that's due the city of Greenfield is in a minority percentage when you look at land to value on these properties. For example, if there's a property assessed at 275 and they owe 30,000, you do the numbers on that, okay? And for you to take an aggressive action, I don't think that's the solution to the problem, okay? You're taking away approximately $250,000 from someone. You're making them homeless. You're contributing to financial disaster. You're breaking up families. Some of this is leading to mental illness. We see this on the streets of Greenfield. And I ask at this time that you do take a positive step in helping to eradicate this. Thank you very much.
I agree.
Thank you, Mitch.
You're quite welcome.
Councilors, what you just heard from Mitch and Joan, who are my neighbors, they live around the street, around the corner from me, was I think typical of other cases that I've heard of. And the common feature here is that consumers, homeowners are very confused by the process. It's not spoken in English to them. The understanding is not there about how the system works. So I wanted to just go through, we put together 10 recommendations. I can go through them fairly quickly. There's a lot of detail attached with each of them, but I want to say at the outset that every single thing on this list of 10 are things that the City Council can and should do, in our opinion. A good number of them rely upon the council saying to the mayor, this is things that we would like you to do because they affect the executive branch. But they're things that that the council, I think, should tell the mayor we'd like to see us operationalize this. And some of these tasks are very simple. Some are a little bit more complicated, but I'm pleased to say that we did meet with the mayor 19 days ago. And she was kind enough to give us an hour of her time to talk about this issue because, as she said initially when the story first came out last April, when I wrote about it, it deserves a serious discussion. So, Mayor, thank you for that. But I'm just going to go through these and Chairwoman Forgy, just stop me if you want to add something or speed it up. But I did send this out to you, so it should not be new material. Recommendation 1 was, again, is just an informational request that the city should post a link on the tax collector. It could be the treasurer. I don't really care which one, but it should post a link on the new website explaining how tax title works in Massachusetts and how Greenfield uses the tax title system, regardless of whether we continue to do it or not. It's one of the tools that every municipality has. I hope it becomes one that Greenfield rarely, if ever, uses. But what I did was I attached a link from the mass.gov website that explains how the process works, and it includes that link is on the second page of the memo that I sent you. It tells Greenfield how to use how the tax title system works. It's not, in my opinion, mass.gov is often not as understandable as it needs to be, but I think that we could easily create a narrative that any taxpayer could go to, link to, and see how it works and see what they're up against, because my work with Mitch and Joan showed me very clearly that this was not a process that anyone without a law degree would easily understand, but it can be very understandable if presented to people. So that's number 1. Again, it's something that's straightforward to do. I'm willing to help with that in the reduction of the words and making it straightforward. But that's number 1. Recommendation number 2 was that Greenfield should start to look at its options. That these are options that we have now. They're not something that we're waiting for anybody else to do. We have options under chapter 60. There's several of them listed on page 2. Some of them I don't like at all. They include taking people's property away. They include throwing people in jail. They're things that I think are actually probably equally undesirable to title taking. But there are other options available. These are not options I'm creating. These are options that are listed by mass.gov, including Chapter 60, Section 35, where the city goes to district court to basically sue for the back taxes. Now, the word sue, of course, doesn't please people, but it's really not different than a title taking goes to land court. You're basically being sued for your back taxes. So the homeowner isn't going to be more comforted to know that they could lose their entire property versus going to district court. I'm sure there are disadvantages to every one of these options, but what we had suggested here was that this issue of using Chapter 60, Section 35, which I think I included. It's just one paragraph long. And all it says is that a city can take a delinquent taxpayer to district court to recover their taxes. I'm sure that your city attorney could weigh in on the pros and cons of such an approach, but I wanted to make sure that councilors knew that the so-called title process is not the only course of action that the city could take, and I'd like to see some workup or exploration of using Chapter 60, for example, Section 35 as a reasonable way to go. And as it says on the Masco website, the collector can choose what to do and pick more than one method at the same time. And I will be happy to go back to that and talk more if you want. The third recommendation was that there should be a warning posted on the tax collector's website. Again, this is not a difficult thing to do. Just explaining that under Chapter 60, Section 53, what can happen to you. That you can lose every bit of equity that you have built up in your home. This is surprising to people because they're used to banks going after mortgage defaults. And if they know anything about that process, they understand that banks do not keep surplus revenue. They return to the ex-homeowner whatever is left over after they have had their delinquent taxes plus all collection costs, legal costs, interest costs, et cetera. After all of that is paid, the rest of it is returned by the bank to the ex-homeowner. And that I think is equitable. I say to people the basic question you have to ask yourself is that if I lend you money, do I have any right to collect from you more than you owe, including my collection costs? And my answer is absolutely not. I'm happy to get back what you owe me, but I don't want more than that. Then recommendation number 4, that Greenfield should enact a bylaw for repayment agreements under Chapter 60, Section 62A. And I printed out how that works as well so that you can look at it on your own time. But basically, there is a process that the state created to try to make repayments equitable across delinquent taxpayers, so that they're not making up a repayment plan process based on someone's background or their wealth or lack of it. It's very similar, and the terms are listed there. Repayment plans cannot exceed 5 years. You have to put down. The city cannot waive more than half of the built-up interest, but they could waive some of it if they wanted to help the taxpayer. And the minimum payment at the start of the agreement is 25% of the amount. If people know this, I think it's clear that we're not being discriminated against as a borrower or as someone that's late in paying our taxes. This is what we do. The writing of that ordinance would be very simple and straightforward. Many other communities have done it. It's not something that's hard to do, and I'd be happy to help with that as well. And I listed some of the legislative language from Section 62A of Chapter 60. So as you can see, a lot of these issues are in Chapter 60. If you want to stroll through that chapter at some point, if you're bored. Recommendation number 5: the city should adopt a home equity statement of intent. This probably should have been number 1, but it's something that Mitch and Joan and I worked on together to edit. because we felt strongly that the very first thing a community should do is have a statement, and the statement is that the city of Greenfield should be fully compensated for all delinquent property taxes that it's owed, plus all collection costs, interest, and legal fees, period. The city does not seek to receive any costs from a delinquent taxpayer in excess of what they owe. Any home equity of the taxpayer beyond that which is required to make the city whole shall not be collected as part of the delinquent tax process. That's a statement of intent. And I think it's important, because if we don't agree on that, there's really, you really can't move forward, because the statement of intent, I think, says ethically, this is what we believe as a city. And this is why the process bothered me that we have now, because I didn't feel it was ethical to do this to anybody. Number 6.
Excuse me,
yes.
Al?
Yeah.
We have a question from Councilor DeSorga.
I'm sorry,
Al,
Jenny.
I'm just sorry. You said, I hate interrupting people because sometimes we lose our train of thought. But could you say that what you just said, that we should agree on the intent? Could you say that again to make sure we're all on the same page?
Yeah, the statement of intent, you want me to read it again, Councilor?
Please.
Yeah, okay. Yes. This is on page 4. It's not the memo I sent you, the pages weren't numbered, but it's the 4th page. Mm-hmm. It's recommendation number 5. Quote, the city of Greenfield should be fully compensated for all delinquent property taxes it is owed, plus all collection costs, interest, and legal fees. The city does not seek to receive any costs from a delinquent taxpayer in excess of what they owe. Any home equity of the taxpayer beyond that which is required to make the city whole shall not be collected as part of the delinquent tax process. So in other words, it's saying that we won't collect more than is owed, plus costs. Anybody have any questions about that statement? So that's what we would be looking for this committee to support as a statement of intent. Number 6, and by the way, some of these at the end are quick, so we're going to be done soon. This one, number 6, I think needs to go to the city's council, because I can say all I want about what I think should happen with this particular point, but I think I'd like the city's council to weigh in. The city should, on a quote, wholly voluntary basis, those words are key, adopt a policy that it will not take the tax-taking statute to collect home equity in excess of debt owed, it should say, not owned, debt owed, including all collection costs, legal costs, and interest. This language should be presented to city council, that's not the COUNCIL, but the city's lawyer, for an opinion on its legality, with recommendations for alternative language that would do the same. Below is the proposed legislative language. And I wrote out there's a quotation at the bottom of page 4 about what I was recommending for language, but it says at the end that basically that the city will cover the cost of all delinquent taxes, collection costs, and related legal expenses, and the city shall waive on a wholly voluntary basis any legal rights to further equity in the property. Any balance of equity remaining shall be returned to the delinquent debtor. So that would be similar to what a bank does. Now, why this language? Because there was a court case that I included this court case for full transparency. There was a court case called Massachusetts Kelly versus the City of Boston, in which the SJC judge said that a disbursement, this is by the town, a disbursement back, in other words, paying surplus back to the taxpayer, the homeowner, without statutory authority would be wholly voluntary. Meaning that, you know, we as the Commonwealth, we're not going to repay you. You know, we're not going to back you for this. This has to be your decision, wholly voluntary. I've had several attorneys tell me that this is something that you want to look at before you do anything with an ordinance, because the language, is from the court decision, and it suggests that there was some debate over whether the judge meant that there is it says that the sentence above it says on the theory of equity and good conscience, which would be what we would be arguing, I would be arguing, is that equity and good conscience tells me we can't keep doing this, that if a municipality has no power to pay out money whenever there may be a surplus after a sale of real estate following foreclosure of a tax title. And then it says such disbursements without statutory authority. So in other words, if you try to do this, you don't have authority in statute to do it. So you have to do it on a wholly voluntary basis. You can't go back to section 53 of chapter 60 and said, we're doing this under that section. No, you're not. You're doing it on a wholly voluntary basis. That's why I want city council to look at it. So that's number 6. And then 7, 8, 9, and 10. Well, 7, 8, and 9 are all the same, and they're very simple. They all have to do with, I'd like to see an annual report from the tax collector. It could be done by the treasurer, that tells every member of the council and all taxpayers in Greenfield, how many title takings did we have? How much did we make from each title taking? And the details of who owned the property, what address. Just it's like a compendium that probably wouldn't take that long to compile, because the tax collector has indicated that yes, there was a list of whatever it was, 30, 35 properties published a couple months ago. But the number of tax takings, probably, I don't know, I don't want to estimate, maybe it's under 50 in a year. The town of Conway just published 10 last week in the recorder, 10 pieces of property that they were taking by title. So I want to emphasize this is not just Greenfield. This is every city and commonwealth that uses this particular title or section of the law. But I think we should have an annual report. I told the mayor I would love to see her ask for that report. I don't think it's burdensome to produce. I think it should be there now. Again, it's not something that I wish I could do it, but I guess I could through public records request, but that would be absurd. So it's published an annual report, number 8, add language to tax bills. I think this is important, that there be a sheet of paper. It's obviously not something you could print on the back of a bill. It's not big enough, but a 1-pager, I think, would be adequate to explain to taxpayers, what happens to delinquent taxes? What if your taxes become delinquent or are overdue? It needs to be in plain English. But what happens if that happens in 1 page? And send that out with the tax bills so that people are not, because the way the statute works now, there is no, you get no hearing before you start to get a notice from the collector saying, I'm taking title to your property. There's no court hearing. And if you want to redeem your property, it's only then that you go to land court. So that feature, by the way, has been called unconstitutional by several prominent attorneys in the state. And there is a lawsuit currently against the Commonwealth filed by 2 property owners in Eastern Mass who actually unfortunately had their properties taken from them. Recommendation number 9, I'm almost done. Greenfield property owners should be sent a notice of their rights under tax delinquency law more frequently. This should include before and after foreclosure, which would explain to homeowners their right to redeem their home. Mitch used that term. When I first saw it, I thought it was a religious term of some sort. But you can redeem your home within 1 year of your notice of your home title being taken. And then finally, number 10, the mayor and the council. This is not just something I would put at the mayor's feet. It is not something I would just put at the council's feet. I think both of you, both the council and the mayor, should jointly. The ideal would be a joint letter to would be, in this case, Representative Whips, our new second Greenfield state rep, and to whom Senator Comerford, to support the home equity repeal law. It will not be numbered House 3053 because this bill is the formal session is now over. They're in an informal session. I doubt that anything will move until January. It'll have a new number and a new 2-year lifespan. But I would love to see representatives of the council and the mayor's office to say, we would like to see this process amended. And if you ask me what does the bill do, it's included on I included the full text on page 6 and 7. And the most salient piece of that is that under in the first paragraph of House 3053, it says that the land court, this is on the end of the first paragraph, the land court shall also order a public sale of the foreclosed property and order distribution, this is the key part, order distribution of the proceeds consistent with the provisions of General Law, Chapter 183, Section 21 through 24 and 27. That's the statute that deals with banks. So they want to do it similar to how banks return the surplus of a homeowner's equity after they've received everything that was due to them on the property, if there is anything. In some cases, there isn't. The whole shooting match goes to the bank. But it says that all of that inclusive, treating the tax title holder like a mortgagee, that's the tax title holder would be the city, the mortgagee, with the first priority interest in proceeds from the property, and treating the delinquent tax debtor as the mortgagor. So they are the person that receives the surplus that's left over from the in this case the tax title taking. So that in several nutshels is what we're recommending. I've tried to do things, present some options that I thought were realistic. Some of them need to be explored further. All of them need the cooperation of the council and the mayor to make this happen. But I would be very pleased to work with you on this because I was appalled to find out how this worked, and I appreciate your patience in listening to us, both you and to the mayor, in listening to us about this, because I think it's something that when it happens, it's awful. And if we can stop it from happening, it would be wonderful. So thank you. Happy to answer any questions if I can.
Okay. Thank you, Al, Joan, and Mitch very much for your presentation here this evening. Councilor DeSorga.
So I had a question, and I actually, this appears to be a time where we could have a little bit of dialogue here. I actually followed this. I thought this was a very fascinating discussion. And I read about people like this elderly woman in New Bedford that lost her home with all the equity in it. But in this municipality, we have a lot of rental properties. And I saw, I did read all of what you had put together. I can't open two things at once. Do you all feel that it should be the same way if there was somebody that was owning multiple rental properties? This is a part of, it's a part of our ongoing, it would be a part of my ongoing struggle with this. I'm just going to speak only for myself, as I know factually of at least one individual, but I believe that there are more that own multiple rental properties, who, they will be continuing not to pay until the last, it's the very last minute, and they actually were going to lose whatever it was. They would do it like the day before. So, and you're a gifted writer, Al, I'm just going to say that. I think in my way of thinking, incorporated into that should be something, I wouldn't have wanted Mitch and Joan to be on the street. I also, thinking of protecting the city, if someone is using this as an art form or a game, and they never intend to pay, and they own multiple properties that they're not paying on, it's just a question. Would we be having that same rule for one person who lives in their home as opposed to someone that, because that could be a liability for the city? So you could think about that or express your.
Well,
I just need to clear that up.
I'll give you a short answer. Maybe Mitch and Joan want to say, but this bill is not written just for people who live in a single family home or whatever. I mean, if I'm a landlord and I have 3 properties in town, let's say they were the 2 family properties, and I owe Greenfield money, property taxes, this law and what I'm proposing in terms of the alternatives of going to Chapter 60, Section 35, District Court, they're not treated any differently. There's a casualty to that, which is their tenants, but I'll get to that in a second. But if I'm the owner and I'm playing this game of, well, Greenfield will never catch up with me. I have no intention of, I'm going to string it out as far as I can. And frankly, I've seen that happen. I mean, I've lived in this town a long time. I've seen some prominent people who owned more property than I'll ever own and had more money than I'll ever have, who didn't pay their taxes. But the way the law works is that fortunately is that the city of Greenfield is entitled by law to recoup its taxes plus well, I think 16% interest plus court costs plus legal fees, and it's a question of how that gets done, not when it, if it will get done. I cannot be a scofflaw, whether I'm a wealthy landlord who's just getting by cheating the town of its taxes. No one that I've talked to about this has ever said that we should in any way excuse delinquent taxes. No, we're not talking about that, but we're talking about taking what is owed to us and to make us whole. Now, what do you do about the person who's living in an apartment where the landlord hasn't paid the rent for a long time? And I think there should be some period of time that the city uses for forbearance, to decide how long do we wait before we start to initiate the process of legally getting back our taxes. I personally don't think it should be years, but I think the law allows you to start sending people notices within 14 days after they've been notified of delinquent taxes. But the tenants, I don't have an easy answer for what happens to the tenants, because the law right now, if as you heard from Mitch and Joan's narrative, they were given an order from a sheriff knocking on their front door that you are now tenants and you will be out by the new year or you will be evicted. So the eviction proceedings would have started for them. So whether it's a homeowner or a tenant, when a home is lost, who's ever in there is damaged by that. Now the way to deal with that is to have a tenant relocation funding, but I don't think it's part or some program like that. You could attach that to the legislation that's in the general court. I don't think had anything like that in it, Ginny, but I think it's a good thing for the city to be concerned about what happens to the tenants who get displaced. I'm not sure I would link it to this bill, but I would say that that issue of tenants becoming homeless is something that all of us should be concerned about. But this particular House 3053, whatever the number, I don't remember from reading the details that I don't think there was anything in there about displaced tenants. But I think it's reprehensible that a landlord would do that to their people. It's bad enough that homeowners have to go through this, but to do this to tenants who don't even own the property and they end up losing their place to live, I think is pretty reprehensible. But I take that under advisement. I agree with you that we need to be concerned about the tenants, but that doesn't change the fact that Greenfield has the ability to collect every penny that's owed to them, or they sell the property, or they get it back through court. What I object to is just taking more than we're owed. That principle is what brought me to the table on this.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And what Liz is on the phone, we're 14%. Are we 14%, Director Gilman, for interest, I think? If she can speak, if she's not muted. I think we're 14%, as I recall.
That wasn't my recollection, Councilor Jenny. But I would defer to Kelly because you can charge 16.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it's 16, but I can check it.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter for the purposes of tonight's discussion, but
Right.
it's it amounts, and And by the way, the legal fees are killer. Mitch and Joan can tell you about that. I mean, their legal fees were about a third of what they had to pay, a third beyond what they owed. And the legal fees are not under anybody's control. You can be charged for the lawyer's time, whether it's $250 an hour, $300 an hour, $400 an hour. You have no say or control over that. You don't even get an itemized bill in many cases. You get a bill from the attorney. The one that I saw from Mitch was actually partially handwritten. I mean, I was just, I was amazed.
Okay. Counselors, any other questions or comments that you'd like to make this evening? Okay, well, I'm going to, go ahead, Counselor Toronzo, please.
I mean, I guess these are not to say, these aren't questions that I expect answered, but almost kind of food for thought. At least what, my considerations in listening to this and trying to look at it from a perspective of not only as a person who owns property, but also from a taxpayer's point of view. So just trying to look at this from kind of like both sides of why this kind of thing would exist in the first place. Because of course, on the surface, it sounds really nasty. Like it sounds so easy. Like why wouldn't we be just making ourselves whole and then leaving the equity there? And so I was trying to think of considerations as to why that might have been. And I don't know why this was created to begin with. But I just wanted to kind of propose some questions as we think about this going forward. Is I definitely think that a lot of the recommendations on there are very easy to and should already be there. Like really should already be there. Putting the very clear info on what would happen, as Al said, like adding a page to your tax bill every year. Maybe a slightly lower blurb on something like a sewer or water bill. I think of should we maybe as the state or as just a community, however it would be adopted, integrate some of these things into, I've always said kind of like the schools, we kind of got rid of home ec. We kind of stopped teaching children how to be adults. And then we just throw them out to the wolves and we expect them to know things like tax title, things like mortgaging, all of that stuff. Like, could this be something that also gets kind of a different discussion into something like the mass housing partnership, where you're having first-time home buyers classes that are telling you about insurance, they're telling you about mortgage, they tell you nothing really about taxes. And obviously this being, as was also described, different and more egregious of a taking than a foreclosure from a bank. I think it's beholden to us, whether it's just the municipality or the state, like we could push for the legislature to make that very, very clear. Because when you buy a house, you're not signing documents with the city. You're not signing any of these things that explain to you any of this stuff. And there may be some information in that. I can't remember reading through the hundreds of pages of loan documents and stuff, but there may be some little blurb in there, but I certainly don't remember that portion of it. And, could we think about having a different kind of payment plan system? I know it's tough sometimes with the city, but, we're collecting our taxes quarterly. We do our sewer and water twice a year. Almost like those little flyers you get with, are you having trouble? Like, is there a monthly payment plan? Because some people don't budget in the same way. And so it becomes very hard to all of a sudden get hit with this big bill that you're like, crap, I can't make it. And then, I know just, from hearing from folks who've had money troubles, they will, if they can't pay the whole thing, they just think, well, I'm not going to pay any of it. And they think it's not worth it. But so something like that, having some sort of support for different options for payment plans than just one way or nothing. on the flip side, I don't know what the court cost difference are between land court or doing or going through what am I trying to think of, or district court.
District
Yeah,
court,
like just so I don't know if those are more one way or the other. I was thinking, why wouldn't we just do that? That could be an option, but maybe there's a reason people, municipalities don't want to. Would do our collection costs include anything for a sale? The city is not obviously doesn't want to be in a position of owning property. Kind of like I've heard that my whole life. Banks aren't really in the position of owning property. They don't like it when they have to foreclose. So I'm sure that the costs are significant. But if all of a sudden we're having almost play partial realtor, that just something to consider on the structure. Because again, I'm unfamiliar with the breakdown of what those costs are, other than if we're saying an interest rate is 16%, and you're getting variable costs from attorneys and things like that. What are our other collection costs that are included? And I guess I know I'm kind of rambling off a lot. I'm reading through these notes that I was writing. There's like banks obviously work a little bit different because they're for profit. They rely on investments. They rely on utilizing the money that they're expected to collect to make profit. Whereas it's similar but different, obviously, from a municipality where we're relying on the tax rate that's put, the expectation that those taxes are going to be fully funded. I'm sure there's probably some thought of contingency that we're not ever going to collect 100% of taxes, but trying to make a budget, and then so if it doesn't get funded and it spills over, what like monetary effect does this have on the other taxpayers in the city? Because then if you're not collecting enough, correct me if I'm wrong, Liz, we would have to adjust. It would be part of adjusting the tax rate going forward, and affect the budget is all I'm saying. So these are just thoughts I had of. Potentially, why certain choices were made when this was set up to begin with.
Okay.
I had a quick question.
Councillor Healy?
Yep, and Al might be able to answer this. So a lot of people, their property taxes are built into their mortgage, right? So when you have a mortgage payment, you're paying that through your mortgage. Some people decide not to go that route. So how's the process work, Al, if somebody fails to pay their mortgage, the house is foreclosed on by the bank, and the city is owed taxes? Does the bank pay the city their equitable amount that's owed to them for those back taxes, or is that back on the citizen?
My answer would be yes. I haven't personally sat through a mortgage, foreclosure. Actually, I did with a friend of mine in Bernston who passed away, but that was a mess. Yeah, my understanding is that the town gets its taxes when the property is sold. That the bank, has a statement of what's due, and part of that is the taxes that are due. If the taxes have been collected by the bank, they don't keep that. They pay that back to the municipality. That's my understanding, Councillor. I could be wrong, but I don't.
Yeah,
I think that's how it works.
My point there is why should we treat a person any different than the bank, right? So we only ask for what we're owed by the bank. When we go to the bank for a foreclosure, why should we treat a person any differently? Because it's really sad when you think about it. A lot of people, work their whole lives to pay for the house and raise their families, and you get older, and not everybody's has the opportunity to build a 401k and have a retirement. A lot of people are living off Social Security, and it's not a lot of money. So when the property tax bill comes in, it's tough for them to swallow that when they're only getting $1,200 a month to live, right? And they're struggling with grocery prices and all these other things that are affected in the world right now. And I don't think it's fair to take something away from them that they worked their whole life to build up and gain equity in. So, you know, the most honorable thing to do is take what you're owed, give the money back to the person, and give them an opportunity to live the rest of their life as a human, right? And go get an apartment or get a condo with the money that they might get from the sale of the house. So I think it was very well written on your part, and I appreciate the time you spent on this, because this is a big issue, and I just don't think it's right, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you. I did, you just reminded me of something I wanted to add very briefly, that we also don't do I don't think we do a particularly aggressive job of notifying people who are eligible for property tax exemptions and tax breaks, particularly the senior population, about what their rights are. There's something called the circuit breaker, which you know, many seniors know about, but there's also a lot that don't. And I know that some people end up getting into trouble and have no idea that they could get a 3-year look back on their property taxes reduction through the so-called circuit breaker program, which has recently been enhanced. So I think that's another thing that the tax collector's office could be looking at, is how to make sure that we know that our population, you know, there's a work-off program for seniors for property taxes. And this is not for tonight's discussion because it's another topic, Counselor, but the people that you're talking about, there are some other ways we can help them on the other end, which is when they're paying their taxes by reducing their taxes. And some of the circuit breaker cost, I think, is picked up by the Commonwealth, not by the local community. But that's a discussion for another night.
So I would like to, oh, I'm sorry, I've got a few more questions.
One last question from Mitch. You said you brought in a partial payment of 20,000 and it wasn't accepted. Was there a reason for that?
No explanation. Until I got a lawyer, I wasn't getting any kind of cooperation from the city of Greenfield.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
All right. These were bank certified checks. They were not personal checks. Okay. And I won't get into the details of what occurred later on, what was said about that. This is a real disaster, and we don't want it to happen to anyone else.
Thank you.
Councilor Toronzo, did I see your hand up?
Yeah, I just, I was thinking of, yeah, I definitely think there's a lot of proactive measures we could take here, regardless of whether we don't follow that practice anymore. That's obviously the biggest part of this discussion. But even if, I think kind of, Al, the way you phrased it, even if that part, even if the tax title stayed, and I know that's not what you desire, even if it did stay, there's certainly a lot of responsible steps we could take to inform people, educate people, and we should. It crossed my mind with the question about the multiple properties thing, and I wonder if there wouldn't be, because I think that is a problem. I think it's a problem. It's not just, you know, in our city. I think that's a problem in a lot of places. You got out-of-state people buying up properties, not paying for the locations to get that. So I mean, maybe there, just as we have different laws out there for single family dwellings versus, you know, once you get into like a commercial dwelling of more than 3 units, maybe having a, you know, a difference in the approach. I don't know, just, I know that the tenants would still be affected, and that part really sucks because they have nothing to do with it, especially if they're paying their rent. And you know, that again, bigger discussion, a lot more pieces involved, but I was just, I don't know, just like food for thought as it came up. That I don't know if we could implement something like that on a municipal level, or we'd have to, the whole state statute would have to change. I don't know. I'm not clear on that.
I should, Councilor, you remind me that I did mean to tell you that there are 11 states in the country that still have this law. The most recent one to repeal it was Michigan, but there's only 11 states that have this statute. And there is an effort to try to get, obviously, in Massachusetts, to get it repealed. I'm hopeful that you will help me with that. and let our senator and representative know that we don't want to collect more than is owed to us. We'd be very happy getting what we're owed. But that I'm hoping that that law will be repealed and taken off the books
Right.
like it was in Michigan last year.
Okay, I would like to comment as well and say thank you very much, all of our participants this evening. I think that when you start to look at the tax title system, this is a very entrenched system. It's been there for a long period of time. And I think that judging by the reaction of people this evening, a lot of this was very punitive, so that if you purposely did not pay your taxes, there would be serious repercussions. And that was making a conscious choice. But there is, in my opinion, a difference between someone who has worked all their life, paid their mortgage off, lives on a limited income, and now has an issue because of tax title. I can tell you that we're going back quite a number of years, I'd say 20, probably more than that, when there was a time that everything was listed, all tax title, people who owed tax title money, their names and addresses, it was all published. It was all public knowledge. It is all public record. So it's not like you are invading anybody's privacy by doing that. But there was always, again, the other thing that has changed is that you paid your taxes once a year. Now we have paying taxes every quarter. It was thought that it would make it easier on people, ease the tax burden by moving it that way. So we went from once a year to, twice a year, now to 4 times a year. So there's always been this issue, but I do applaud the effort in trying to bring a greater equity. This feels like proactive law to me. It does not feel like it's a reactive piece. It feels like we are, at this point, being confronted with the opportunity to do some proactive thinking and make some law that would benefit our citizens in Greenfield.
Absolutely.
So, having said all of that, once again, I want to thank the participants this evening for coming forward. I would like, if the committee agrees to this, I would like that we have maybe the mayor and Kelly Varner join us in September for a continued discussion on this issue, so we can hear what is going on right now and perhaps how difficult it would be to change midstream. Al, I wanted to ask you, you did mention our representatives and our senator. Are they on board with this at this particular point?
This particular point, they are running for office, honestly.
I see.
And even if I thought they were paying attention, I don't think I could get their full attention. But
okay.
I have not heard from. I know that I sent a note to Senator Comerford, who is usually very responsive. Mitch and Joan were pursuing Senator Hines because he has a piece of the West County, but he's also the chair of the Revenue Committee, and they eventually, not to speak for Mitch and Joan, but they eventually did track him down and get a response from him, but nothing really of substance. I mean, the bill was stuck in his committee for a good year and a half. So I think the answer there is that the problem is that there are communities that are delighted to get this money, and sometimes they get a windfall. Let's be honest. I'm going to be sharing another story soon in the paper about another property in Greenfield that, according to my rough calculations, was worth about $250,000 in profit to the city, and I'm not sure the homeowner even knows it. So it's when you score big, you score big, and it's unfortunately if a few things had changed with Mitch and Joan's story, they would have been out about $250,000. So it's very dramatic. And you'll see when my piece is printed that there are some communities where they're very happy to get that money, and to me it makes it very difficult for me to feel good about the process in my town that I live in.
I agree.
Thank you once.
I agree.
Thank you.
Thank you once again.
Chris, could I ask,
Yes.
So I think I've heard this answer before, but just to be clear, the money that's gathered from tax title, what account does that go into?
It goes into, I know Liz is there. I'll attempt the answer. It goes into a revenue fund. And all of that revenue counts towards the funding of the budget in all of those calculations as we shake it down. So, Liz, did you want
Sure,
to?
I'll take it. I'll just expand a little on it, but you have it. So tax liens go into a revenue account called tax liens redeemed. We don't budget them because, as Councilor Terrazzo mentioned, you never collect 100%. So if you don't budget that, you get close to capturing that. Then there's a second account, revenue account, that's tax foreclosure. And that's where the foreclosure process happens. And the revenue from that is recorded into that account. And then occasionally, as Mr. Norman has stated, there is occasionally, and it's not as often as you think, but it does happen where the city at an auction may make more than what was owed. And there may be times where we don't make what was owed in auctions. There's also those as well. And there's a separate account for that. So there's 3 different accounts associated with this whole process, and accounting that goes into each and every one of those for both the treasurer collector and the accounting office.
If there's a surplus in it, how does that get allocated? I guess, like, is that through
Closes.
does it be how does it close? Yeah, what does it close to?
Everything in the general fund closes to free cash.
Oh, close. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you once again, everyone. I'd like to move on. Does anybody have any other business they want to bring up tonight? Councilor DeSorger?
I did, while Liz was still here. So we are not voting on this this month, but we had yes.
Are you talking about the audit?
No, not at all.
No.
Oh, sorry, dear.
Oh, no. No, I actually, and I don't have the paper in front of me that I had worked so hard on, so I'm going to just
Okay.
speak off the cuff. There was a financial order that we're actually not voting on until next month, and it's for $57,000 for something that appears to me that was very needed. But all three of the excess funds, which were things that were budgeted capital projects. One was Silver Street, that I recall, Deerfield Street, a retaining wall. They all happened. This is my 3rd year serving on council. I didn't vote on any of those appropriations. So they were all money that was leftover. I'm going to use it as leftovers, and you would use a different term.
That's fine.
But the entire time that I've been doing this, because we vote for things, and I had this worded beautifully. I don't mean this as a criticism at all, because I sincerely don't. But I believe that it would be good for us to know how much things ended up costing, especially as we go into the, our capital budget again. I agonize. I really agonize over this job when I have to vote for money for something, for that retaining wall that we put by Mesa. I was measuring that wall when checking it with my son that was in construction to make sure all of this was the right amount. And then I thought, well, I don't know how much we spent of this. It was a great estimate. But like the senior center I heard didn't cost, and we bonded for that, 4.2 million. What Silver Street ended up costing, what the senior center ended up costing, at some point, I think maybe at capital projects time, I'd like an accounting of what things, where they finished out. And I know that we can repurpose them for some things. Every year, we always spend our sidewalk money. We always spend our street money. But some of these projects, I thought, I didn't know we had $57,000 left, and I'm delighted that we do. And it sounds like a great way that we're going to be using it. But do you see what I mean? I feel like we have a fiscal responsibility to know that.
Yeah, and there's explanations too that go with that too. So in other words, if you actually had bonded for something and there were funds left over, you still need to use it on something that can be bonded for by law. So in other words, all the ones that Director Warner presented did not come from borrowing. And so, and too, you can always vote to close them to the general fund, that on those others, we go through routinely and try and clean them up, basically.
Okay.
Especially if there's small amounts hanging. Those we may just close to the general fund if there's 10 cents or $2, or doesn't make sense to keep accounting for them.
Okay.
So we can go, I think capital improvement program is a good time to go through that. Really do. And I'm sorry, I thought you were talking about the audit order. Because there actually was one submitted, by the way. It was for 175,000 and it was tabled at council. And therefore you just remove it from the table and reduce it to 100,000.
That's what I was going to mention, that after I looked back over it, that the memo is asking us to take that one from the table and reduce it. So we could have, or could, I guess, we take it back off, to give a recommendation, at least at that point, or we could just do it tomorrow, I guess, right?
Yeah, I would suggest tomorrow because you'd already kind of moved on from it. But
I was realizing that too. Like, we didn't need a new order for 100,000. It's just we lower that one, and and it's all coming back to me. We kind of said that we were thinking of doing that, but we wanted to see the other financial order first.
Correct.
So we could do them both at the same time.
Right.
It was a month ago. It was a hot summer.
Oh, there's so much going on. It isn't funny. So
I agree.
So I look forward to having have Kelly come to your next meeting, because I think it's helpful for you all to understand the actual process and actually see the forms that are sent out. I think that would be a good thing.
Sure. I think that's very important. Was very good presentation this evening, but we want to know what's in place and how does the system work. So it's very good. Okay, so I'm going to say that I am not going to be at the meeting tomorrow evening in person. I'm sorry. I will try to get in on Zoom. Please help me not be fake. And please, it's really up to the three of you tomorrow evening to shepherd our things, things that go along. If I can't be there for whatever reason, shepherd things along as best you can. please, you know, it's important that a report come out of committee when they ask for committee reports about what happened this evening in regard to the whole tax title piece. It would be interesting to keep I think it would be important to keep the council up to date and what we intend to do next week as well. And if there are any financial orders, Ginny said that she would take the lead in reading them, but that doesn't exclude either one of you from doing that as well. Because I know, Mike, I depend on you heavily to read because I can't anymore after a certain time at night. So, so anyway, please, you know, just if I can't get in, just fill in the gaps and we'll all get through it. So I appreciate all of that very much. If there is no other business, I'll take a motion. Oh, I have to state that September 20th, 2022 at 6 p.m. Is our next Ways and Means meeting. It will be on Zoom unless otherwise posted. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Disorder.
Second, please.
Second, Healy.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for your cooperation and for being here this evening. I really appreciate everything you do for our city. I'm sure other people do as well. So thank you again. The meeting ends at 7:28.